Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone, and all the roses falling. It's you, it is you, must go, and I must bide. Come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. I'll be in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But if you come and all the flowers dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me, and I shall hear those soft you tread above me, and oh, my grave will warmer, sweeter be. You will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me. All right. My rendition. I can't play music anymore, so you're left with me. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. I wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. And I'll just quickly go over this. As you know, my eyesight isn't very good anymore. It's not bad. I'm not complaining. Just letting you know why I can't read that. So I am grateful that I can see, you know, don't you know? So let me just get this so I can read it to you. So this is, somebody asked me the other day, can we buy the GBUX? And yes, you can, but the GBUX is a mixture of gold and miners. I don't trust any ETFs out there. But anyway, here's your big cup from 2020 all the way to 25. This person is calling it a cup and handle pattern, massive cup and handle pattern. I don't know. I just think it's a cup. What's to me, I mean, like I admit to you, these fancy chart patterns and the counts leave me in the dust. But what I do like here is that it's broken out. And you can see the trend line he's trying to make, both with the orange line across horizontally, and then the diagonal that he's making sort of a triangle. I do think this is a legitimate read on, oh, I see, saying an inside handle, whatever that is. So anyway, he has a target of 60, and I think ultimately the GDX will get to 100. Nothing straight up, of course. And then I want to show you, I really can't give you a chart of Railtown because they printed one share at like a penny, so it screws up the chart. But this is finger, and obviously I did this with my finger, but this is how I see finger. Finger has tried 1, 2, 3, 4 times basically to get through $1.40. It's trying again. There's a triangle there, triangle pennant, whatever you want to call it, which is resistance. So I personally think if it breaks sort of the 135, 140, 142 range, it breaks out of all this mess. You could argue that and I apologize for my eyesight, that I think that says 180, that first yellow line. You could argue it would pause there. I don't think so. I think the punishment by Roth Capital in order to do their financing, which they took no risk on, by selling stock above the market and then giving it to the company below market, this is the spread that Roth Capital was able to lock in for their greedy selves and clients, and they charge fees, and they pat themselves on the back as if they really are an investment bank. But this is the state of U.S. markets now. That destruction that Roth Capital caused is nearly over. And I don't think the 180, should the price get there, I don't think it's going to be much resistance. I think the $2 level is probably where it would pause, if it's going to pause at all. And you can see that Roth Capital started selling the stock down pretty sharply for 2, 3, 4 days before it plummeted. And Roth Capital did that on purpose, out of greed, to help their shorts, but also it's sort of an at-the-market offering. These guys take no risk. They have no clients. They just sell the stock in the market and give the company their own money. It is the biggest fraud on Wall Street, and Roth Capital is part of it, in my judgment. Anyway, it's taken us now 1, 2, 3, 4 months to get through that awful non-investment banking job that Roth Capital did. You can see that Finger Motion traded above $2 basically for a long, long time. Only when Roth Capital got involved did it get crushed in a matter of a few days so they could sell the company stock that they didn't own, cross it with stock they knew the company was going to issue, which I think is illegal. It's using inside information. Their license should be stolen. I think Roth Capital was way out of line. But what I think is not going to change anything. This is the state of the United States stock market. This is a NASDAQ stock. And while Adina Friedman preens around as the world's most powerful woman on Wall Street, she does nothing about this. As far as I'm concerned, she can go back to whichever college she supposedly studied hard in. Find a man and marry him. Go back to she's a joke for the women's movement. She's just a pure joke. So anyway, I'm sorry I got off on that. I think once finger motion breaks about $1.40, it goes to $2. If it breaks $2, I think it goes in that 250, 260 range. I think that's a pretty significant area, unfortunately. It might blast through there. It could get up to that 320, 340 range, but I'd be careful at 250, absent news. It's possible the company, going back to the sharks at Roth Capital, may be talked into another raise. We hope not. We hope not. Have I made it clear? I've given Roth Capital 4 months. They never supported the stock. They raped finger motion. And Adina Friedman is the pimp. So I hope I've been clear on that. I'm optimistic for finger, though. If finger breaks through here, 180, $2 range, then 220, maybe 250. If we're lucky, it goes through 280, but sort of the 280 range. I don't know. Let's see what the news says. I have a feeling they're going to raise money. All right, this is NIXX, and I tried to draw a pennant down there with the blue, and I got one line straight, 2 lines straight. I don't know. I couldn't get the other one straight. But basically, you can see a pretty strong, in my opinion, a pretty strong downward resistance line that goes all the way back to December of last year, maybe November, but I think it's December. And that's pretty significant. There's another line that I drew below it that kind of is there, but I wouldn't blame you if you told me I'm reaching. But I drew that line across the top of the miniature pennant, and then I brought it back to the closing and the previous opening or closing price. And I think it's a legitimate line. To me, that's kind of a nice bullish pattern, but I think I'm really reaching in my drawing of it. But I stand by it. I drew it. I see it, and I think it's a bullish pattern. The ignoring that sort of dagger drawing, the bigger pennant, if finger motion breaks through, I'm sorry, NIXX, right? Gosh, I can't see that. I think it says two. Let me see if I can look on my phone. Yeah, so that's the $2 range. So if NIXX gets decisively through $2 with a little volume, and then you see my squiggly blue line, there's a line of resistance up there too. So maybe let's call it 220. If it gets through 220 or 210 even with some strong volume, I think it'll puncture through up to 250. Of course, it'll come back and test because the shorts will still be in there. But I think where NIXX will next go is $273. You see that straight green line I drew goes all the way back. It's not meant to be exact, but that happens to coincide with the 200-day moving average. So I think somewhere around 305 has some significance. You could argue $4. You could argue 550, but for me, if NIXX breaks 625 with volume, she's going to run. And I don't know how high that run will go, but I think it's worth, depending on your status of NIXX, I think it's worth seeing if NIXX will break through 620, 650. That's what I would hope for on volume. We'll let the volume tell us. We're not going to do nothing on the day that there's big volume, but it's a gamble anyway. I think with my bullish interpretation here, which could be BS, I think there's enough there that it can get through 625, 650. It can get through that double top. If it does, I think there's a lot higher, 8, 12, and let's just see when it goes. Now I want to show you one more thing, and then I'll look at your comments. I was listening to Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger over I think Friday, and they were talking about how sometimes markets give you a chance to act. And if you're well informed, if you know the story, and the stock price is down, you're given an opportunity, you should act. And what they were talking about here is I think it was in 2008, roughly, but the mortgage market got way out of whack, or one of the bonds they're talking about. And so the prices got extreme, and not only extreme, but very extreme. So if you can't think quickly and act resolutely, you miss it, because it repaired right away. Somebody else stepped in, others stepped in. So when things get out of whack, you have to be willing to stand by your own notebook, your own due diligence, your own rationale. And if there's a stock sell-off, for example, in a finger motion, which I think has some risk in the higher valuations, but you have a group like Roth Capital who couldn't raise any money, so they just sold money into the market and gave it to finger motion. That, to me, is an extreme event. We know what's going on with finger. We know the growth potential, and we know Roth is a shitty investment bank, or at least that part of it, that the men and women involved in that transaction were just crossing for the shorts. To me, it's obvious. Well, that's an extreme. So in this case, you didn't have to think quickly, but we can act resolutely. In the case of NIXX, it's the same thing. We kind of know the story. We haven't had to act quickly, but we can be resolute in that gambling part of our portfolio. Railtown, I really think this week, if you don't own Railtown, I think you're going to look back and say, darn it, now everybody wants to own Railtown, and I had a chance to buy it. I think Railtown at 30 cents is a I don't know what to compare it to, but you're getting a ticket at the price of the stock from, I should have looked at that on the chart, but from a year ago, from a year and a half ago, from before their conductor product was finished and ready for marketing. You're getting the stock at a price before the corporate action was announced. 160 companies in that partnership, and they're buying it. They're buying the whole thing. I think Railtown at 30 cents, I think 40 cents is really the breakthrough on Railtown. And sometime this coming week, next week, my prediction, it's not a promise. The 4 weeks might be up on that press release. And I don't think Railtown's going to be 30 cents in a fortnight. All right, I'm done with that beginning, and I'll go to the comments. So you guys, Michael Anthony really wants you to buy Pfizer. Pfizer got immunity for its mRNA experimental non-tested DNA affecting product. Michael wants you to believe that the public anger over time to cancers, opportunistic cancers, leukemias, other myocarditis in young people that's never been there before. He wants you to believe that Pfizer's immunity is going to survive public anger. I think that's a stupid bet. But if you want to listen to Michael Anthony, he wants you to know the PE ratio has dropped from 40 to 20, and revenues and earnings are climbing each quarter on new drugs. And the FDA, which we all trust, is approving them. It has a 43-cent dividend, and it'll end the year at 35 to 45 with upgrades on the stock at 32. If you think you can make money in Pfizer, please listen to Michael Anthony. If you want to increase your leverage, buy call options. I think it is sheer idiocy to buy Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. Now, to be consistent with what I've said before, I think the stock market, it does have a blow-off top ahead of it, where in the space of a month, 6 months, I don't know the time frame, 9 months, but in a very short period of time, I think you can make 30, 40, 50% on the indices. And that means Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer will go up. There's a reason that the PE is down from 39 to 20. That 20 can go lower if nothing changes by people getting out of the stock. The PE ratio can go higher if earnings drop, if there are lawsuits, if there are reserves for losses, internationally or domestically. I don't care if you're a Democrat, if you work at Yahoo, Google, Amazon, Facebook, if you're one of the women out there who are communist, Marxist, and are end justifies the means attitude in manipulating and controlling news, which is the Soviet Union. But that's what you're doing, and you know it. But if you're doing it, you have uncles, you have sons, you have nieces, you have friends who have suffered this massive onslaught caused by Pfizer. So guys, if you want to listen to Michael Anthony, go to his channel. He is a broken record on this piece of shit company called Pfizer. I hope I've made myself clear on how I stand on getting into Pfizer. I would argue, I don't know if you're asking me if I don't think I predicted a short squeeze. I actually think if the market goes in the shitter, that's not going to change anything either. The shorts will make so much money on the way down. This market is totally a mug's game. So if the market rolls over and sells off, which I don't think it's doing right now. Lion called it out on the SPY maybe 3 weeks ago that it was going down, and he's been right. The market has had a sharp, what I think is a correction. Depending on the index, we're down over 20%, so that could even be a bear market. But I think that's what it is a correction. I do not think the market is in the shitter. In fact, I think this is a time that you can buy the market. Is it the bottom? I don't know how to call the bottom, but I think you can buy calls, you can buy some of the stocks you can like, you can buy this crappy stock that Mark Anthony wants you to buy. He doesn't tell you, and you guys all ignore the risk of putting an experimental DNA warping item in your bloodstream. It's not even a vaccine. So if you want to do Pfizer, please do. Risk is extraordinarily high. Reward is very low, in my opinion. And it pays a dividend. It pays a dividend. That's got to be good, right? You can count on that dividend. I don't think Finger's going to squeeze. What's the question? When is Finger going to squeeze? I mean, when is Kim Kardashian going to stop selling sex and lead a normal life? Who knows? Who knows? I think the setup for Finger to squeeze is a process. Ham believes that Finger could squeeze at any time because the shorts are trapped. And I think Ham reads the trading in a stock extremely well. He's called many trades that I've seen, and he's called them spot on. But my belief is Finger motion is going to double from here over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It might go higher. And that's one hell of a trade. That's 100% in 2 months. depending on the news, and there potentially is very good news, Finger could go higher. The key unknown with Finger right now, they are going to have to raise more money. I think it's obvious, to keep up with an expanding, really good order, really good contract, exclusive on these trucks. But where are they going to get the money? Go back to the criminal, I don't want to say criminals because I don't think they are, but go back to the effete investment bank of Roth Capital, who pretends to have clients, but they really don't. They just have people who have access to market makers so they can sell the company's own stock short, and then the company can issue stock at a lower price. Let me ask you this. Shouldn't a marketplace under Adena Friedman's widening wing, shouldn't it allow the company to sell the stock at 270? And instead of Roth Capital selling the stock at 270 and pricing the deal at 150, what's hard about that? There's no investment banking going on. That's just abusing the company. But Adena Friedman is paid by Roth Capital. She's paid by Carlyle Group. She collects $2.5 million a month. What's she going to do? Look out for you? So my point is, Finger Motion, to me, has to raise more money. And Roth Capital is there to help facilitate the issuance of shares from Finger Motion to the shorts. That's what Roth Capital is there for. They're a crack firm, at least in the New York desk. And that's how I feel about it. Their investment banking on Finger Motion should be investigated. But you want to know when the squeeze comes. What's going to make it squeeze? What's going to make it squeeze? There's according to him, 250 million shares sold without delivery. My opinion, Nappy Noel, is we've seen that this collective criminal cabal owns crooked lawyers, owns cooperative regulators. It is the largest client money for the prime brokers and the lending desks. They manipulate the market makers, and Adena Friedman doesn't care. Robert Cook doesn't care. Gary Gensler, and then Chucky Cromwell Cheese doesn't care. They don't care. Why? Because it is an Amazon of money. You sell stock you don't own, driving the price of the company down. You get a corrupt investment bank like Roth Capital to let the stock drop. They butter up the company, let the stock drop over $1, and then just cross it. Hey, don't you think the company could do a better job of that themselves? If you didn't have the Merrill Lynch rule, if you didn't have the completely useless Adena Friedman, if you didn't have the regulators looking the other way, if you had settlement, if you had research, if you got rid of rapid fire trading in stocks on the NASDAQ and below, if you brought back the uptick rule, if you got rid of Reg Show for any stock below $1 billion, below 10 billion in market cap, then I believe you that there's going to be a squeeze. My feeling, if I haven't been clear, and it's a problem. I've got to say things as if I'm talking to 2-year-olds. I do not think finger motion is squeezing anytime soon. I think they have finger motion under as much control as they have GME, AMC, and any other one of these big stories. Okay? Now, what causes a squeeze is a surprise. A surprise. And a consistent punishing loss of money. So I reserve the right to change my mind at any time. Anytime. If finger motion has a good fourth quarter that's positive, but more importantly, in the body of the information, we can suss that the year ahead is going to be positive. If their contract on the trucks and SUVs and drones is indeed growing, and it's exclusive, obviously, if they can raise money with a partnership or a joint venture or some sort of forbearance instead of having to issue shares through the short sellers facilitator, Roth Capital, that would be huge. If finger motion could get success in one area, so that, Nappy, when your wife asks you, what does finger motion do? You can answer her. Oh, they build out the rapid response emergency vehicles for every government in China, and their contract is exclusive. They're addressing a $50 billion, I'm making it up, a $50 billion market, and it should take them 3 years to build it out. Something like that. That becomes the story that can squeeze. Right now, you don't have that. What is finger right now? What is finger right now? Well, they do, they're top-up business. They've got contracts in China. How's China doing? Well, some people say it's going to do well. Some people are buying, others. They've got SMS business. Is there a lot of competition? Yeah, there's a lot of competition, but they got good relationships. They've got contracts, and they're being funded by Pacific Life Re, Munich Re, and this is giant. Yeah, what's the status of it? Well, that's still in the second or third phase, but we think that the insurance is, but what are they going to do? Well, it's either going to be fire or house or health or life. We're not sure yet, but they're working on it, and they're in that stage. They also have the NIXX of Southeast Asia, and they're also doing this government contract for emergency vehicles. And by the way, they get a toll every time somebody buys something on Tmall. They get a piece of it if it's their client. And did I say they've got good contacts in China? Let me just tell you, Nappy, that story, if you're talking to an institutional broker, they've already hung up on you. They've already hung up on you. And if they're a friend of yours, they're going to say, maybe you should get into another line of business. What's happened to you? When Finger's story is, hey, they just arranged a joint venture with blank, and blank is going to provide the bridge funding so that finger motion can fulfill this year, I'm making it up, 100 vehicles, next year 500, and finger motion will be immediately self-funding after this first 1 or 2 quarters. and forever. They'll never have to go back to Roth Capital. Oh, and the joint venture is with so-and-so. And their revenues are projected to grow, boom, 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 boom. Then you got a situation where you could get a short squeeze. Realistically, to me, that's at least months away. Now, that's me. That's me. I don't want to speak for Ham, but I will tell you, Ham is an institutional trader. So he knows the ebbs and flows of institutional trading, and he has been watching finger motion for 3 years more. And he absolutely is determined to have the gears catch in the short machine to cause these shorts a lot of pain and to cause a short squeeze. They are doing everything from the special dividend, from other information that I don't think I know enough about, but Ham spoke about, which is they know the short and it's in North America. They are targeting it. So Ham's information is excellent, I think, and Ham's information could be correct. But if I'm placing my bet, I think finger motion has to prove to Wall Street, but also to the criminals and the stock loan desks, that they have positive revenue that's growing and is predictable, positive revenue that turns to cash flow, all of which is predictably growing and leads to positive earnings. Once that happens, they're not going to be able to short any stock anymore. And the stock is a new price. What is it? I don't know, 5, 7. And then the shorts are in trouble. They have massive losses. What are they going to do? Now, the gap that I think's going on is I think the criminals have successfully gotten Ann Wagner and the regulators to look the other way, while in the European Union, the shorts have their colleagues start a market selling stock and flooding the U.S. markets with shares that don't exist. They do it, and they're able to rotate trades out of LLCs and get them into Europe. And then our good allies over in Europe, they don't even keep a record of the trades. Trillions of dollars go offshore. I don't know if you've been listening to me. I've read the Toads articles. I've talked about this so much. Why can't it get through your head that they have the markets under control? Except for surprise. And except for a flood of new buying. And of course, except for when a short squeeze starts. Last time finger motion was in a short squeeze, they were able to come in here and stop it. I don't think they're going to be successful with that methodology this time. But we need not the news per se, but we need good news from finger motion so the story can be extrapolated as one of growing revenues, predictable revenues, growing cash flow, predictable cash flow, and growing earnings, predictable earnings. And then you get multiples on the stock that will make the shorts feel pain, and then they've got to buy in, except for the one caveat, if they've been able to move some shares offshore, and I don't know how they do it. It's illegal as hell. Ham points out that every trade in the United States is here and he's right. But if you're moving trades, as Dr. Trimbath says, somewhere her book is, you settle fail to deliver trades with new fail to deliver trades. She's a PhD. She's boring, but she's worked hard, and she has experience. I don't know if she's personally boring. Reading her book is not the Hardy Boys. This is a textbook like book, but I've read it now 3 or 4 times. And finger motion has been a trouble spot for the shorts now for 3 years. But if you think that in that 3-year period they haven't been doing things to make sure a squeeze doesn't happen down here, you might be right, but I find it unlikely. And so for you to ask, when is finger going to squeeze? I have to say I don't know. And I have to say I don't think soon. I think it's going to be I don't think the annual report will come out until May, maybe. And they're going to need money to continue to fulfill this C2 contract, these automobiles. So if SAIC does a joint venture with them or something, that would be great. I don't buy the Alibaba rumor. I think it doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't mean who am I? Who am I? If you got news out of the blue, you would have surprise. That would be surprise. And a squeeze can come when there's surprise. A squeeze can come when the surprise causes buying and the stock price goes up and they can't do anything about it. And all of a sudden their prime broker is losing money. That can cause a squeeze. But you're asking me to predict something that's a rumor, which I don't believe in. I don't believe Alibaba is going to buy in to finger motion. I don't believe it. Because it doesn't make sense to me. SAIC, yeah, I think they could. Or they could make a deal to help get finger motions to the point that funding the C2 contract is self-funding. But to me, that's 5 months away, 6 months away. How does the market treat it? If SAIC were to come in now and they described how they were going to do that, well, the market might bring forward all that good news to now. And you might get a research report out of Roth Capital that says the fact that SAIS, I'm making this up because I don't know, but SAIS is in a joint venture with Finger and they're going to bridge this gap. We expect full year earnings of Finger Motion to massively jump, and there's not going to be dilution because they don't need to issue any more shares. These things could make it squeeze, but the most likely thing for Finger Motion is when the stock goes up, they're going to sell more stock. Roth Capital will sell stock at $350 or $325 and give it to the company at $175 or $2. That is a shitty investment bank. That's a bank that is dancing with front running, self-dealing, violating securities laws like manipulation and collusion. It's shit. But Adina Friedman doesn't care. Finger has no choice. And they know it. Adina Friedman, Robert Cook, Gary Gensler, Chuck Cromwell, and Ann Wagner, any of the committees. They don't care. And you ask me when it's going to squeeze. I don't know. I don't know. That's a very negative outlook that I just gave. But that's how I see it. Ham hasn't been on my calls because I think he's feeling poorly, but it also might be that, you know, he doesn't agree with that statement of mine. But I do not have access to the information Ham does. I do not have the trading desk ability to study patterns in the trades. He can remember trades during the day. He can remember the positions as they built over time. So he believes finger motion can squeeze as soon as it breaks out. I'm a little more sanguine about it, and or a little less sanguine, I guess I should say. I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question. If you're looking for a squeeze, Nappy, the one that I can tell you will happen is silver. Silver is $35. You can buy it you can buy the ETF SLV, which doesn't have any silver in it, or you can buy the Sprott Physical Silver Trust, PSLV, which is up from when I told you guys about it. It's up, I don't know how to do the arithmetic, but it was under $8 and now it's over 11, I think. It's a nice move. It'll go further, but you can buy the silver as well. You can have it stored or you can have it delivered. I think silver will go from 35 to 90, maybe 120 in this run up. It will then pull back to 50. And then I think over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, silver goes to 500 and probably 5,000. But silver could be subject to a squeeze at any time when the LBMA has a failure to deliver physical silver for a physical future, a call, you know, the right to have delivery of silver. They'll fail. And you could have a squeeze in silver that, unlike anything you've ever seen. You might have to wait. It won't be something that people will talk about so much. Until it's $100, everybody will be talking about it. But if you haven't learned that the time to be in something is after you've studied it, and then nobody is really getting in, or they are, but it's being shorted, so the stock price is down. The easy money, the exciting money, is when everyone becomes aware. That's where silver is. So if you want an asset that has the potential not only to give you 10x, but 100x just over the next few years. Part of that will be wealth creation. Part of it will be because the dollar becomes worthless. So it'll be just wealth preservation. Both are important, I think. But silver, you don't have to worry about Jeff Easton, Adina Friedman, and her laziness. Well, it's a small market. They can manipulate it. Yeah, they have been able to. That's coming to an end. That's coming to an end. The other stuff, if you want a stock that could move before Finger does, I think Railtown at 30 cents, I don't know how much finger you own, and I don't think you should sell it. But, you know, I can't do the arithmetic in my head, but, you know, 500 shares of finger. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sell it. Because I think finger's right in the middle of being worth $2 or $3 a share. But I think it's going to take weeks and maybe months. $500, just to run the numbers, 500 shares of finger could buy you 2,000 shares of Railtown. Railtown could be worth $3. So that could be worth 6,000. You could come back and buy finger at 2, and you could get 3,000. You could sell 500 shares of finger, buy Railtown, come back and get 3,000 shares of finger. But it might not work. It's tricky to trade back and forth. It's just, you don't know if it'll work. But I think Railtown is a stock at 30 cents that could be $3. When you're going to say, well, Railtown, I'm just being repetitive. Railtown had huge PR a month ago. It implies they have to finish that PR in 4 weeks. That was last week. So could it be this week? Could it be next week? We'll find out. But they are acquiring a network of 161 AI companies that, according to X, the PR woman named began with a K, Rebecca K. Darn it. Anyway, you can search for Railtown on X. 400 million in revenues. They have the two guys that built, I want to say Constellation Software, but I'm not sure that's the correct name. But the thing is, Railtown also probably has a short position in it. But that's something that the buyers for Railtown, everybody involved in Railtown, investors and people close to the company, are precluded from buying the stock while it's in this investment banking mode. So they're not buying right now. All the companies, investors, and rich people involved in the 161 AI companies who are involved can't buy because of the quiet period. And then all of Canaccord's institutional and retail investors can't buy. So nobody's buying Railtown. In the people in the know, the family offices, the mutual funds, the I don't know if it's ETFs, but the big pools of money, they're not buying because they can't. They can't. It's a quiet period. And they have material information that needs to be fully disclosed before they can buy. So what happens when news comes out with Railtown? Well, I think it's a trigger for buying. That's something I can tell you, I think can go from 30 cents to $1.20 in a matter of a few days. Does that trigger some sort of short covering? Possibly. But I think once that stock's over $1, everybody will be buying it. And you'll never see it at 30 cents again, in my opinion. But stick with asking me when finger's going to squeeze. I think NIXX, even though there's a lot of risky to NIXX, I also think NIXX is setting up possibly for a big week. It traded really well on Friday. There's rumors on X. They too have an AI story. They too had PRs out. But NIXX tried twice, not NIXX, but the market, the world, whatever, the marketplace, tried twice before to get it out of the ditch with a lot of volume. I think there's going to be another chance. I think it's a lot riskier than Railtown in the sense that NIXX had 50 million shares volume and went to 12. Then it had 60 million shares volume and went to like 4 or 5. And so we have to be alert that if they get another big volume day, maybe the ball doesn't go as high as it did last time. I just showed you a chart on NIXX. I believe NIXX is going to break out and could get back to $6, $7, $8. Maybe it goes to $12. One guy on X has put out orders to sell at $40, but I think that's coming soon. So those are two stories that I think actually you could ask me, when are they going to squeeze? And I'm going to tell you, I have no idea if they're going to squeeze, but if they do, I think it'll be this week or next week. Finger, they're not going to ring a bell when it squeezes. They are not going to ring a bell when it squeezes. And it could happen at any time, I'm sure. But Finger is a story that if you buy it here at $1.30, I think it goes to $2, $3, $4 with all that fundamental, and it might go higher. And that's a hell of a move. Hell of a move. Absolutely gigantic move. 100% on your money in 2 months is gigantic. And that's kind of the risk reward I see for Finger. I don't see much downside risk. But you got to be aware that Roth Capital will screw the company again, because that's what Roth Capital does. They represent the shorts. It's clear. All right, I'm done on that question. All right, so JR has a point of view about NextBridge. It's very interesting. So JR's view is different than mine, which, I mean, he's a smart guy, so he may be right. I'm keeping my next MMTLP / NextBridge in my brokerage account unless something changes with the NextBridge. So that's an interesting. That's an interesting. JR, I can't see why that's the way to go. Obviously, you're worried that NextBridge is in trouble with the lawsuits, with the leases, and with financing, and therefore might go bankrupt. So you think it's better to have an expired non-trading call on NIXX, which I guess doesn't expire. And to you, since NIXX might be worthless, why switch over one worthless thing for another worthless thing? I just don't know what you pick up by staying there. You don't pick up pain and suffering. You don't pick up fraud. You don't pick up racketeering. You don't pick up collusion. You don't pick up FINRA or Fidelity or someone like that having committed crimes. You don't pick up any kind of number that is owed in the short squeeze. I guess the idea is somebody is going to settle with MMTLP/NextBridge placeholder sooner than they would settle with the real NextBridge. And if you've moved over, NextBridge probably is going to be worthless anyway, and you gave up your wrong. You essentially said, well, I'm satisfied in getting NextBridge, therefore you give up your claim to some sort of wrong, and therefore a settlement would not go to you. I don't. I guess I don't know. I don't think that's a very strong argument because I think all of the big payouts are going to be in the areas of fraud and racketeering and violation of securities laws, all of that. And everybody's entitled to that, in my opinion, because we all suffered from it. I think NextBridge is far from being worthless. I think NextBridge is fighting, and I think the tortious interference from all ends, you know it, I won't run through them, all different areas, is a cause for lawsuits and payout, but that'll just go to NextBridge shareholders. It won't go to placeholders. On the other hand, people with the placeholder, their brokerage firm will owe them that unless they want to have the problem of counterfeiting shares exposed. So, yeah, you might not be taking much risk there. Of course, you leave Greg McCabe without being able to tell Congress that all shares have been accounted for. Therefore, the criminals can tell Congress, hey, there's no problem here. This is just a meme stock. It's just a bunch of retail speculators. It's no problem. There's plenty of stock to settle. We don't have an issue. In fact, most people are happy just to hang on with the placeholder. I think that's a real weakness in that strategy. And then if NextBridge were to succeed in other projects, none of that goes to the placeholder. And my biggest change of, as somebody said, I changed my tune. But it's been 3 years, whatever, 830 days. I think the criminals have destroyed the argument in court for NextBridge being valuable. That's what I think. If NextBridge were to regain the leases through procedures now, the lawyers for the other side would say, hey, that doesn't matter. That started 900 days later, 3 years later. During the period of the 3 years where the stock was available, though that was all worthless. So, and NextBridge did a deal, which, Your Honor, we can calculate it less than $1 a share. We don't know. They're trying to sell 40 million shares. They haven't been able to get it done. It's that NextBridge is so worthless. People who have a right to ask for the shares aren't asking for them. There's 60 million shares held by shareholders whose shareholders have decided, Your Honor, that NextBridge is so worthless they would rather hold MMTLP than move over. So, Your Honor, we think the settlement should be very, very small. And that's what unfortunately, that's what I think the criminals have achieved. I do not think they're going to win because there's so many great people on our side. If I try to name them all, it'll be an insult to the hundreds I don't name. But I think we can win this fight, and I think there can be huge payouts. But I think by moving the shares, we help Greg McCabe. But I don't know. I just can't see any reason to hold something that's worthless. A settlement. Who's going to give the settlement? Trump? Nunez? RFK? Elon Musk? They're going to have an investigation. They'll go to Jessica Hopper's action, and she now has a big job at Edward Jones or somewhere as her reward. And they're going to see that she properly, according to the regulators, pulled out a rule which prevented mass confusion on settlement. They're going to see that FINRA and the SEC believe that NextBridge is a publicly traded company. I don't agree, but that's what they say. They're going to say that the short position, therefore, there was no trading, Your Honor, but as soon as NextBridge starts trading, we can get rid of the imbalances in the short position as we already have. They just crank up the selling machine out of Germany. West Christian finds out something with MMAT. They find out that Fidelity and FINRA are involved. It's all racketeering. So therefore, Wes is able to get some of the companies to settle with MMTLP holders, placeholders. And Wes's argument is going to be, let's pick one of them. Let's say it's Fidelity. And he gets a huge settlement out of Fidelity with Fidelity shareholders. Huge, let's just say. I guess your argument would be that Wes Christian would tell Fidelity, why don't you just settle with the MMTLP holders, the placeholders of NextBridge? Don't settle with the shares that are at the transfer agent because they already got their reward. And I guess your argument is Greg McCabe would go along with that. That Wes Christian, if he's the attorney, would go along with that. That the majority shareholders would go along with that. I guess Fidelity would make its massive settlement with the placeholders, but not the shares at NextBridge, because the shares at NextBridge were not harmed. They were happy just to get the shares of NextBridge. I guess that would be the argument. I think it's really weak argument. There's no question that the people who put money, transferred to NextBridge, missed out on the short squeeze. There's no question the people who bought MMTLP and then it stopped trading, and the only thing left to do to preserve some real asset was to move to NextBridge. There's no question they were harmed by Fidelity. The fraud, the collusion, the not asking for delivery, the oversale of the stock, the suppression of the stock price, the possible proof that links at torturous interference that happened down in Texas in many ways. I think everybody in NextBridge is going to get that same settlement. I just don't see it. But I guess if Wes Christian were to get a settlement, I'm making it up, with Fidelity, the settlement would be limited to the people who did not transfer their shares, therefore inflicting self-harm, because the FINRA fact says it's up to the shareholder to request. So I guess the argument would be FINRA halted trading. My broker followed FINRA's rules and to not trade. And my broker should have distributed to me automatically shares of NextBridge, and they didn't, so I'm harmed. Then you'd be arguing that the fact FAQ that FINRA put out is a lie and is intentionally misleading. that says that each of us have to ask for our shares. And then you would ask the court to ignore the fact that for 3 years almost, you could have asked for your shares and received them for the price of 2 FedEx envelopes, and you didn't do it. And you ask the court to ignore that there's roughly 60, 70 million shares still sitting there that haven't been split out from street name. And so the court, in the face of all that, is asked that to see that you were harmed by Fidelity in this case that I'm making up. I think it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the other areas, West Christian could settle with FINRA, and then FINRA makes a big settlement for criminal acts, for collusion with the shorts, for profiting from the shorting itself. But FINRA's immune. So I guess West could puncture that immunity somehow, and FINRA would pay out a big settlement only to the placeholders, not to NextBridge shareholders, because the NextBridge shareholders got their shares, but they weren't, therefore they weren't harmed by FINRA's fraud and destruction and collusion. That's a really weak argument too. I guess West could settle with Wall Street in total, prime brokers, back offices, in a big tobacco settlement way, because this system has destroyed so many companies and it's been operating like a criminal enterprise on a gigantic scale, and West catches them out on MMTLP, MMAT. And I guess if West settled with a big global settlement with Wall Street, he would agree to only have Wall Street pay out placeholders of NextBridge and MMTLP, not people who exchanged their placeholder for real shares, because people who took the real shares were not harmed by the criminal actions, the collusion, the manipulation, the market cap theft. Only those people who did not receive their shares automatically of NextBridge and therefore were pissed off enough to not ask for shares of NextBridge because that was an impropriety too far. Only those people get a settlement, not anybody that's in NextBridge. I can't see where that argument works either. West Christian makes huge progress with Congress and with the journalists and with the Trump administration. And they're all fired up. They want penalties. They want to rescue 65,000 shareholders, and they want to cause massive hurt to the people who did this. And so Congress, President Trump, and the journalists are going to say only people who did not ask for their NIXX shares, did not automatically receive their NIXX shares, and hung on to the expired, retired placeholder called MMTLP. Only they are going to get the payout. Because people who took the NIXX shares got their just desserts. They got their shares in NIXX. Therefore, they weren't hurt. They weren't hurt by the short squeeze problem. They weren't hurt by the manipulation of the stock price. They weren't hurt by opportunity costs. They weren't hurt by pain and suffering. Racketeering didn't hurt them. They weren't hurt by the criminal actions against the land or the company. No. Only the people who sat back and did nothing regarding their shares, their placeholders, deserve the massive settlement, or a settlement at all. Because those who swapped to NIXX got what they wanted, got what they deserved. I don't think Trump's going to go for that. And I don't think, anyway, I don't know. Right now, there's no risk to keeping the placeholder because nobody's moving. There's 60 million shares available. So why hurry? No one else is doing it. 60 million shares. Maybe more. So we leave it in such a situation that Greg can't prove that there is a problem. The shorts can say there isn't a problem. And Wall Street is saying that NIXX is a public company. The talk by Johnny Appleseed to get this thing trading on blockchain has already apparently led to a market offshore for NIXX. It's too complicated for me to figure out. I guess you're right. Might as well do nothing. I don't know. Problem is that it's 60 million shares in total, but some people might do nothing, and when they go to try to do something, their broker has run out of shares. I think it's I think it's a really you're not being reckless because you've thought it through, but it's a really risky thing to do. But if you understand the risks, and I'm not making my case very clear, why not? I have the easy part. I'm just saying, I'm just talking. It's your money, it's your shares. I moved mine, including my retirement, because I think they're worth something. And I think that to the extent that Greg can make other things happen, I actually think I can make my money back more quickly than a tobacco lawsuit. The other side are some of the most expensive attorneys in the world, securities attorneys in the world, and they've been well paid. Their country clubs, their vacations, their wife's tit job, their facelift, their daughters are going to the best school, their house at the Hamptons, all of that is paid through this. So they're gonna bring everything to bear. And your argument is somehow Wall Street wronged you and the best way to protect your rights in a so-called settlement is to keep the placeholder. I think it's a little bit of groupthink. The best chance we have of creating a count is by moving our shares, but not yours. If you move yours, that's not going to change anything. We need 10,000. Well, probably not that many, just probably 2,000 or 3,000 shareholders to move their shares. And then we have a count. Do we have the full account? No, but we have the real count. And then everything else, that makes Wes Christian's job easier. But right now, the ambiguity is just what the shorts want. Wall Street only owes us 1 share of NextBridge for 1 share of MMTLP. They don't owe us any more than that. It's in the letters from FINRA. It's in the filing. It's in the approval by the SEC. That's all they owe us. There's other issues like, should they have approved MMTLP for trading? Should only the people who somehow were first in get the NextBridge shares, which is impossible to figure out. This is impossible because a lot of those people sold shares, but that's one issue that has to be resolved. That FINRA defrauded investors and committed crimes. And stopped trading. inappropriately. So Wall Street owes us the short squeeze, and trading on the Friday and the Monday, and they didn't give it to us. So the best way to show Wall Street that they owe that to us is to hang on to the expired MMTLP. So we're saying that Jessica Hopper stopped trading the stock Friday morning. But we thought we should have been entitled to trading Friday and Monday. But the facts on the ground and the decision by the regulators, and until the regulators are fired, all we know is the regulators had a right to regulate. According to the regulatory procedure, there was no trading Friday and Monday. And on Wednesday, MMTLP ceased to exist. In between, Wall Street, the argument goes, should have automatically distributed shares of NextBridge to each of us. Which, if they had, you wouldn't be hanging on to your placeholder. But they didn't do that. So our issue is the whole thing was a lie from the get-go. So there's all sorts of crimes we can go after, and the counterfeiting and all that, like in any other stock. They stopped us from benefiting from the short squeeze, and they didn't automatically deliver NextBridge. So the best way to protect my rights would be to not ask for my shares in NextBridge, which FINRA has since, on 2 or 3 months later, put out a fact that said it's on the shareholder to do that. So the argument is I'm not going to ask, and I'm in a better position. I don't know. See, I think the attorneys on the other side, they are practiced at the art of deception. They're going to say, William never asked for his shares. 60 million shares weren't asked for, so they obviously weren't worth very much. Our client stood ready to exchange William's MMTLP for shares that he never asked. And Your Honor, it's been 1,000 days. We had to close the window. Your Honor, NextBridge has been worthless for the entire 1,000 days. So we feel we owe William nothing for the trading. That he risked it. He bought it at 8. NextBridge isn't worth anything. So, Your Honor, if you're wanting us to settle MMTLP, if we compare it to NextBridge for 900 days, it's worthless. Your Honor, NextBridge is a publicly traded company, and standard operating procedure is short positions carry over to the public company. So we don't see anything where our client has done anything wrong. Obviously, if there's order imbalances, it was a very busy week. My client too suffered from the decision by FINRA to stop trading. And as soon as FINRA starts trading in NextBridge, allows trading, or as soon as NextBridge starts trading, we can reconcile our positions. I don't, I don't see a big settlement from those lines of argument. Where I see settlement is from the whole systemic crap being exposed. And I guess you think, which might be reasonable, you think that keeping the placeholder, one, we must admit it's less trouble. Two, it's a cleaner record set, maybe. And three, it doesn't matter really. It doesn't matter if you have NextBridge or them. If there's a big global settlement, everybody's going to participate. So why bother? I guess. I don't know. I've worn myself out on the thoughts. Here's ocean sailing. I made my choice on advice from an attorney. Do not transfer. FINRA illegal forced me into a private company. If I transferred, then I agreed with FINRA. I hope you're paying that attorney for that advice. So, oh God. The argument is that FINRA illegally forced us into a private company. But we bought MMTLP. I don't have the SEC, but we bought MMTLP, which, okay, I see what you're saying. It automatically transferred into NextBridge. But what you're saying, your attorney is saying, is they took Friday trading away from you and Monday trading away from you, which I agree with, by the way. And you would have sold your stock then, whatever the price, at $1 or at $10,000. But they took that choice from you illegally, and therefore they forced you. You had every right to expect that you could sell stock on a shortened settlement on Friday and on Monday from FINRA's previous indications, and they arbitrarily stopped the trading Friday morning. So ipso facto, that meant they forced you into a private company, which was never your intention in the first place. You just wanted to trade MMTLP. Okay. And therefore, if you change your mind and move, you're saying, you know what? I was pissed off. I had no intention of owning a private company, but now I'm going to move and I'm going to agree that FINRA did have a right to that decision, and I'm just going to go take the stock. That's I don't know. I hope you paid your attorney, because I don't think it's good advice. But I'm not an attorney. it may be true that FINRA's action forced you, because you had no choice, into transferring your shares to MMTLP, to NextBridge. But remember, your attorney's argument is that FINRA, well, I don't know her whole argument, but she probably said FINRA stopped trading on Friday illegally. So you weren't able to trade on Friday and on Monday. So FINRA took that action. Your attorney cannot deny that. FINRA did stop trading. So the clock kept going. Your broker didn't automatically make the transfer because odds are your broker didn't have enough shares. But also your broker is probably just as confused as anybody else. But time went by. The Friday went by, the weekend went by, the Monday went by, the Tuesday went by, and then the Wednesday was the expiry of MMTLP. It just doesn't exist anymore. So your attorney is saying, the argument is that FINRA cheated you, wronged you. Therefore, you have to keep the wrong in place to benefit. My argument is you have no choice but to transfer your worthless MMTLP in the abundance of caution into something that's worth something of NextBridge, but you're not abandoning by any means your claim that FINRA took your rights away from you for Friday and Monday. But after Friday and Monday went by, there's new facts on the ground. You didn't get to trade. And now the only thing that's left that's worth anything is the shares of NextBridge. But by taking the shares of NextBridge, you're not suddenly changing time and going back to Thursday and saying that your intention changed. You're not going back to Friday and saying, hey, I really didn't want to trade it on Friday. You're not going back to Monday and saying, hey, I didn't want to trade it on Monday. You're just dealing with the fact that MMTLP is nothing anymore. And the only way for you to try to get anything back is to move it to NextBridge. I think your attorney is totally wrong. I think she needs to talk to another attorney in the case. I'm not questioning her abilities at all. I just think she needs to talk to an attorney, maybe at FINRA, maybe at the SEC. I mean, no one is going to agree with your attorney at Congress. They've gotten long letters from FINRA. No one at the regulatory office is going to agree with your attorney. Trump might. Musk might. They might. I'm trying to think if Wes Christian would agree with your attorney. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just hope you paid your attorney, because I think it's going to cost you a lot of money. And you could go after your attorney's insurance, maybe. But you know what? We probably have. It looks like, Ocean, nobody's moving their shares, so it might be moot. The only time there's going to be urgency to move your placeholder is when they run out of seats. I just don't agree with your attorney. Your attorney clearly is not a securities attorney. Maybe not. I have no way of knowing that. But she doesn't appreciate that what you do. I guess that's just my opinion. So maybe she'd tell me I'm just totally wrong. But what you do on Wednesday, or here, what you do 900 days later to preserve your wealth, rather than sitting on a worthless coupon, you're assuming all the risk in return for nothing. And your attorney, I don't think, my guess is your attorney gave her advice for free. So your attorney's risking nothing. You can't even sue her if she's wrong. 5 years from now, she'll be out of the business, or she'll be at a different firm. I'm so sorry, Ocean, that your attorney gave that advice. I think it just doesn't make any sense. I do not see how here 900 days later, when Congress has done nothing, journalists don't care, your broker-dealer has done nothing, lawyers have done nothing. Yes, Wes is doing something now that he's paid, and MMAT might get there. Broker-dealers, prime brokers, market, nobody's done anything 900 days later. They have tortuously interfered with NIXX and with the renewal of the leases. But that's not really relevant to your decision. And the other thing your attorney isn't telling you is this is all going to settle. It's not going to go to court. It'll go to court for a while, but then there'll be a settlement. And that settlement, I'm highly confident, unless Greg McCabe dies, is going to include all parties, and that's just the way it is. But all right, I will grant that I'm not an attorney. I'm just going to read this again. I made my choice from advice from an attorney. Do not transfer. FINRA illegally forced me into a private company. So FINRA some crooks manipulated data and got MMTLP to trade. If that's your argument, where FINRA was involved and should not have helped or aided that, and somehow they should unwind that it ever traded, I don't think it'd be relevant to this choice. So I think I can skip that part, that guilt, if it applies to FINRA. The second guilt that might apply to FINRA is they approved the corporate action. They took a long time. They announced it. And the SEC was involved too, but we're talking about FINRA. So if your attorney is saying that FINRA illegally authorized the trading, and that's what forced you into a private company, I would guess that that's not what your attorney's saying, because whether MMT were trading or private, the same issue would exist, that you have to change MMTLP for NextBridge shares. That's just the automatic. So the real question would come down to two, maybe. One is that FINRA should not have allowed MMTLP to trade. And that was illegal on their part. And that's what caused you to buy it. And that's what caused you to be trapped in it. So in that case, if you were to convert, you would be accepting NextBridge as your settlement, instead of arguing that FINRA never should have allowed you to be able to buy MMTLP in the first place. Yeah. That might be fruitful, that FINRA illegally allowed it to trade, and therefore it's illegal for you to be forced into the private company. I think the rest of the crowd's not going to go for that, because that means everybody just gets their money back and it bails out the shorts. But that might be one avenue that your attorney could argue for you. If you have, I don't know, you probably have to come up with 300 grand or so to pay her, 250. But then that leaves the other argument, which is FINRA stopped trading illegally, so it meant you could not sell your shares on Friday or Monday, and therefore that's illegal on part of FINRA, and that action gave you it forced you into the private company, and to show them you're not going to keep the private company, you're just going to keep proof that of FINRA's malfeasance, this expired certificate of MMTLP. That'll show them. Yeah, I mean, you got to follow your lawyer's advice. I think it's really bad advice, because you're giving up a real asset for a legal theory, and that legal theory may not prevail. It certainly will not prevail your lawyer's not going to pursue it in court. So the real thing is there an attorney who is currently involved in this case being paid by insurance or being paid in a class action that agrees with your attorney? And that might get you there. But let me ask you, if someone converted to NIXX, does that mean they did not get harmed by FINRA stopping trading on Friday morning? You would rather own something that's worthless than be in a private company. Okay, I got that. Your attorney thinks that if you took the shares of NIXX, then you're acquiescing to FINRA's decision. I just don't see that. I just don't see that. I think you're just trying to protect yourself, and you're trying to play every angle that gets your money back, because your lawyer's theory, I think, has really low chance of winning. There's a long letter from FINRA that I don't know if I have it here, and you can show it to your attorney. I think there's a lie in there, and there's a misrepresentation in there about trading. But they make it really clear. I can't find it. They make it really clear that they had a right to implement rule, whatever it was, if in their judgment it would cause this market disruption. So I don't think it was illegal. That's the problem. I don't think it was an illegal halt. Specious, maybe. I think what was illegal that FINRA did was trade for their own account. And I think that opens up massive, massive settlements. But that's separate from whether you own MMTLP or NIXX. I don't know, Ocean. I hear you. You should listen to your attorney, particularly if you paid her for her advice. But if you didn't pay her, ask her to put her advice in writing, because I think it's going to cost you a lot of money, or it could cost you a lot of money. I don't think if you transfer, you're agreeing with FINRA. I think I just don't see it that way. But I'm not an attorney, so you have to. Truth is, we got screwed because it was allowed by FNGR to let it trade. Yeah, I agree. I agree with Ocean. I agree with JR, if that's what he's arguing. But yes, we lost 2 days of trading. I bought it because I thought we can trade. And in the FINRA letter, they're just misrepresenting the case. They're saying that they implemented that rule because, and it's a covering for what they know was an imbalance. So I do agree with Ocean's attorney on that, that I think you could prove that FINRA was, see, I don't know the vocabulary, complicit, or was aiding and abetting the criminals. And then that's a whole different world. But I don't, maybe I should just admit that Big JR and Ocean's attorney and Ocean are a lot smarter than I am on this, and it makes more sense to state as a matter of principle, I was going to sell my shares and I didn't want NextBridge. So I'm not going to take NextBridge now. I'm still trying to think of what Ocean said to me, but I can't. Do you think her attorney is wrong? But what advantage do we get when we move our shares? Well, I think her attorney's wrong, but you know, I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's in terms of the law. I'm not a professional attorney myself, so my thinking she's wrong is probably, you know, has it maybe a 10 or 15% value. Her attorney is an attorney, knows what the hell she's talking about. And so her opinion probably is 100% value. But, and it's hard for Ocean to give me the full story on, you know, typing. The biggest advantage to moving, for you personally, to moving to NextBridge is that you get your shares in NextBridge. There's a lot of stock that hasn't been asked for, but it doesn't mean that at your brokerage firm that there's still a lot of stock available. When the stock's gone, then you don't have the option anymore. And maybe that's good because then we don't have to discuss it. The benefits I see are basically two. One helps all of us. It helps Greg McCabe. If he has 165 million shares spoken for by real people, not street name, then Congress, everybody that writes in and says, I didn't get my shares, Congress knows there's a problem at that point. And it also helps because everybody that didn't get their shares, there aren't any shares. So there's a real harm then. Right now, you can't prove that harm. Anyway, that helps. That doesn't help you personally very much. What helps you personally is that I think NextBridge has Greg McCabe and a couple other people, and I think Greg is going to make NextBridge work. And he's not going to quit. It's going to be tough. The criminals are making it tough. But I think he's going to make it work. So what is in it for you? I think the Oro Grande comes back, or some part of it. I think the Southern Louisiana Heritage play. He somehow gets that funded. And I think there's other projects that we don't even know of yet. I think the Roth Capital, and by the way, I think the guy that runs the oil and gas at Roth Capital, a friend of mine, is a good man. And that side of Roth Capital was purchased or merged or something, or he joined them maybe. I don't remember what he told me. But I think they're out in LA, and I don't think they're involved in this New York City type Mead at Harry's type trading. So anyway, I think he's a good guy. And I think that if NextBridge does a deal with Roth, they'll reserve the right to say no to the shorts. In other words, if one of the shorts comes in and says, we'll buy 20 million shares, and they'll just say, no, we don't want you to sell to that firm. So I think the odds of getting money back from lawsuits diminishes with time. The more that FINRA and the SEC have gotten information into the record, I think our odds of a massive payout have been effectively much reduced. So by owning shares of NextBridge, they could go to zero. It could go bankrupt, but that's no worse off than owning MMTLP. But I think NextBridge gives you exposure to $5, $10, $15, $20, $50 a share over time if he's able to get it up and running again. MMTLP gives you exposure to zero over time. Absolutely zero. Nothing. Now, Ocean's point, and I think JR's point, is if you transfer, you've acceded to FINRA's decision. And if you've acceded to FINRA's decision, then you're not going to get any payout. Look, I find the whole thing circular, and I don't want to go around that track anymore in my head, because it's either the most brilliant argument ever, or I'm just too tired to see why it isn't. My opinion, though, the only payouts are going to come from fraud, from collusion, from breaking securities laws, all of that. And it's going to accrue to whether you own NextBridge or MMTLP. If you don't agree with that, then like Ocean's attorney says, don't move it, because it'll show that you agree with FINRA. Which is fine, but I think NextBridge has a chance, gives you a second way of making your money. Now, let's say that FINRA cheated all of us. And I'm not disagreeing, by the way. I think they did. But I'm just saying, let's enter it into the record that they did. Let's say the court says FINRA cheated. What then will they owe us? Ocean wants to prove to the court, or have somebody prove, that FINRA illegally forced her into NextBridge, and she doesn't want to be there. So then the question comes, all right, fine. You can have, you don't have to go in. It says on the fact sheet that you don't have to ask. So you don't have to go in. And then the question becomes, all right, what do we owe you? What's the cost? And I'm telling you, I'm not optimistic that they're going to settle very high in terms of what is owed to people. I think the best they'll do is return people's investment. The worst is they'll give zero. But if you wait and there's no shares available, that's all you're going to get. That's the only exposure to upside that you're going to get. I agree with Ocean and JR in the sense that if 3 years from now, your shares of NextBridge are worth 15 and the system somehow pays out 5, they may say, you know what, you got 15, we're only paying out 5. You're not entitled. That might happen. But in that case, you come out ahead. You come out ahead. Man, I wanted to come on this call and talk about Railtown and silver, and instead we're just buried. And it's my own fault. I apologize. I'm not blaming anybody. But we're just buried in something that we can't control. And so I'm not going to change my mind on advice an attorney gave to Ocean. And I'm not going to change my mind on Ocean's and Big JR's opinion, although I respect both of their opinions. I just think they're completely wrong. I don't want to go find it and read it, but MMTLP is worthless. NextBridge could be worthless, but it also could be worth a lot of money. It's going to take time. None of us want to be in this situation, but FINRA claims it had a right to make that decision, and in fact, they rewarded Jessica Hopper with a plush job at Edward Jones for halting trading. FINRA has immunity. It's going to take years, I think. Or it could take years. And I guess the other argument is if Trump does something or Nunes or something, they'd only do it if you were forced into the private shares. But if you accepted the private shares, you didn't deserve anything. That's a theory. It could be true. I'm worn out talking about it. Your fault about talking about MNTI and getting worked up for nothing. I didn't talk about GTII. You want me to talk about GTII? Yeah, I agree with you. I talked about MMTLP. I agree with you. I did it, David. I did it. I guess, David, what I should do is just stop talking about MMTLP and let people stay where they are. They'll lose their money because, you know, I think it's 100% you lose your money in MMTLP, but it's probably 50-50 you lose your money in NextBridge right now. So when you add it all up, 75% odds you lose, 25% you win. Johnny is right. One of the reasons Greg McCabe asked us to. Couldn't say it better. Couldn't say it better. FINRA and the SEC screwed us. Schwab and TD sent out info that was correct. Could be. I don't know. But I think both of those firms are rumored to have share imbalances, which means their prime brokers and their back offices also screwed you and me. Remember, I own it. Once fraud and collusion is proven, it will be I agree with that, David. I think once collusion is proven, it'll be a big payday for Wes, Palikaris, and all the shareholders like Berta and others. I don't own shares of MMAT, but they won't get the patents back, and they won't rebuild the company, and it might snowball into companies offering settlements in the gray market, and I think they will, in any settlement, the whales will demand, not ask, that the settlement be offered to DLJ to NextBridge shareholders as well. FINRA did not do anything illegal when you think and you put in place that they are immune to everything. However, I think immunity protects them, except there's rumors that they shorted the stock or sold the stock in their own retirement accounts. I don't think they're immune from breaking the law that way. What I understand they're immune from is if they make a regulatory ruling, they're protected from lawsuits. But, Wes would know how to pierce all that stuff. But I would guess that immunity does not extend to securities fraud. I can't imagine that if it's proven that they traded for their own account ahead of everybody, that would just bust everything wide open. You think her attorney is wrong? Yeah, I do, but it doesn't. Any update on VJLS? Yeah, the financials are up to date. Thank you for asking. Why, do you own any? Have you ever heard me talk about it? I'm not exactly sure what my obligation is there. I've never spoken about it. And you own it? Good for you. Are holding at 27 with low volume, no bonus. I wonder if it's the calm before the storm. Well, Dave, I think what's happening is the press release was 4 weeks ago that the company was buying AI Partners, which is 161 of the best AI companies private AI companies in North America, with 400 million in revenue, reportedly. And everybody associated with that, from wealthy insiders at Railtown to wealthy insiders at 161 companies, to investors, family offices, institutions who do business through Canaccord can't do anything. If they have access to the negotiations. I mean, I have no idea who does or doesn't, but they can't do any buying. I don't think it's ever been a big short. There's no toxic node or thing to short the stock down. But you're right, there's very little volume either way. My opinion is once they make the follow-up press release, all you have to do is read the one 4 weeks ago. Once they follow that up with how they made everything definitive, the 4 weeks ago it said MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. So the computers automatically sell the stock off. And it says acquisition. The computers automatically sell off. They don't think, they're coded that if you see memorandum of understanding, sell. If you see acquisition, sell. Pending, sell. So anyway, I think that selling stopped once people looked at it. My opinion, Dave, is once there's news and therefore the quiet period is off, the restriction on buying is off, I think you're going to see a lot of buying in the stock and no selling until it gets to higher prices. So I think it is the calm before the storm. My understanding is FINRA put the U3 halt because they're notified by the counterfeiters they were in trouble and could not cover. That's never how it's going to be described in court. It's possible. I went through it all then, and it's very clear that broker dealers got caught without realizing it because they weren't paying attention, and the counterfeiters, the criminals, abused the system. And I said back then, I bet broker dealers are calling into FINRA saying, we had no idea. There's no way we can do this. And, I actually think to the extent FINRA was protecting those broker dealers in court, they're going to argue they did the right thing. It's tough. We bought on Thursday with the Senate on Friday. That's true. I agree with that. That was stolen. And from me as well. But we expect Superman to come in and listen to us and then root out the evil. But no one's going to listen to us for the whole story. Some have. I went into Congress, some did. But how are you going to recreate the short squeeze? You can't. And how are you going to prove something that didn't happen? You can't. I think they won on it, but hopefully, yeah, you're right. They stole that from us. But they're going to argue you don't know it would have gone up. The shorts, the criminals could have sold it off. It's such an unprovable. Left some at broker and transferred some hedging because no one knows what happened. Yeah, Barb, I think that makes sense. At least you'll only be half upset. Ocean sailing, Brett says, I did the same thing on attorney's advice. She stated the liabilities with the brokers. It's not with NBH. And they never should have sold unlocated shares. Well, that's not what your broker that's not what your broker did wrong. Your broker didn't ask for delivery. That's the failure your broker did. The prime broker sold stock that didn't exist. They sold stock that was unlocated. And they took the word of the market makers who should not exist, who lied. And the market makers took the word of the criminals. But the market makers probably are in on it. The prime brokers and the stock loan desks are where the problem is. And your broker should have asked for delivery, but they didn't. Or maybe they did once, but they never followed up. One thing they'll probably do is get it trading again. And then, not MMTP, sorry, they'll get NextBridge trading. And Brett, the Roth Capital filing is 40 million shares. It's been delayed, but it's still out there. It's an S1. So if they get those shares placed, it implies that the stock's going to be trading. I hope not. But when you read it, it implies it. If NextBridge starts trading again, all your broker-dealer has to do is put NextBridge in your account and let it trade and have it sit there, and then you'll trade it or not trade it, and they'll say, hey, you can trade it, we'll honor your trade, but it'll be at a low price. It won't be the short squeeze price. So that's how they won. I did the same thing with my attorney stated, she stated that the liability stands with the brokers, not NextBridge. That's true. I never said it stood with NextBridge. That's a non sequitur. I never said it stood with NextBridge. They never should have sold unallocated shares, unlocated shares. All right, so what you're asking for is settlement, and you're asking for your shares back so you can get out of you can basically not be tied up. You can get your money, whatever it's worth. Well, it's so silly. So you'd rather be an MMTLP, which is probably going to take 5 years, than be in NextBridge, which could take 5 years, but it might only take 2 years. It's just, and I don't think you give up any arguments, but whatever. All right, I made my point. I'm failing at my point. I think you're right to DRS MMP to AST. You're right on RLAIF, but 100% on your value GIT. What's my value of GTIA? You think at $60 million market cap that's not overpriced? Okay. Yeah, I could be wrong on GTIA. I could be wrong on it. All right, I answered Ocean. I answered. Yeah, Brad, I can't believe it either, frankly, that people haven't moved. Can Railtown ride upward thrusting momentum to prices like 5.25? Yes, it can, but I don't know when you're talking about. I think Railtown will be a $25 stock, but it might be by the end of the year or next year. I don't know. But I think Railtown, I mean, what we don't know is how many shares they have to issue, but Railtown has 150 million shares outstanding, 150 million. And they have a market cap of I don't know what their debt is, but let's assume they have no debt. So they have a market cap of around 45 million. So if, let's say over the next 12 to 18 months, they're able to grow revenue and acquire the revenue inside of AIP. It's in their press release. They're going to roll up. But let's say it's just the 400 million, which is all they have stated in that IR Twitter thing. Let's just say they get all of that 400 million because you assume it's going to be growing. So we'll use 400 million. And let's use the current acquisition price of revenues in the AI space by venture capital and investment banks of revenues. It's 19x. So that's times 19. That's 7.6 billion. What do you want me to risk that? What's a good risking? I'll discount that by 2/3. So I'm gonna only take a third of that calculation. So that's 2.5 billion. If we divide it by, they have 150 million shares outstanding. Let's divide it by 250 million. So that gives them 100 million shares with which to buy everything. That's $10 a share. And that's as conservative as I can be. I think they can grow that revenue and maybe it doesn't take that many shares. Anyway, I came up with $10. Another way to do it is if they got the 19 times ratio on 400 million and you use 150 million shares outstanding, it's $46 a share. So that's being completely rose-colored glasses. So somewhere between $10 and $40. Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I'm not telling you that's going to happen next week or 2 weeks. But if the stock were to start trading up, there might be a little small short squeeze. It's RLAIF. RLA. There, Big JR said it. Big JR said it. I didn't hear about a new lawsuit. You know, Junk Savvy's the best. All I heard is MMAT. Yeah, I'll try to find out, Ocean. I'll try to find out. All right, Big John or JR says, if you held MMTLP at any point, you can send in 2 forms. Okay, Big JR, I was waiting for the S1 to be approved before moving, and currently it's a tax loss I carried over. The S1. Buck. Oh, that S1. Is it still out there? Oh, for the 40 million shares. There was another S1. From a long time ago. I can't even remember what it was about. What MMTLP is going to court in Nevada. I was asking if I can send an IPO if I'm at AST in NextBridge. I don't know what an IPO is, but I'm sure, yes. And I bet, Donna, that's a real thank you. And I think you already said good night, but that's an important thing for everybody to do. So I'm sure Junk Savvy will talk about it. I'll try to find out about it tomorrow. I don't have enough to make it worthwhile. That's why. Okay. That makes sense to me. What about the, yeah, that's true. The dividend will probably come out. Remember, I told you it would be delayed. Everyone was, I said it would be, I think I said May, first part of May. But I think I said end of April, beginning of May, something like that. I'd still say that's the time frame. Because you got to get the audit done, the earnings done, and then the SEC can approve it. Yeah. That's coming up. You're right, Will. That could do it. That could do it. AppMex is great. Thank you, Lion. I think that's a good one. I don't want to highlight it because I'm having a hard time. I think I've used it. Have to look it up. I think it's all right. I would, Akira Nira, the sites I would use for physical silver, I would use AppMex. I would use AppMex, particularly if you're having it delivered. I like Silver Doctors, but that might be the same as the one that Lion said. I can't remember. But the one I really like is Gold Silver with Maloney. He has a more limited selection, but I trust him, as I trust the others. I think they're all. But what I don't know if I should say that out loud, but it's called goldsilver.com. Goldsilver.com. I'll just say that these are legal tender as well, and he's aware of it. but he's very honest, very above board. And then the other one, I'm trying to think, I'm blanking out. Schleckman, Miles Franklin, I've never used, but I really like listening to Andy Schleckman. I think he's compelling. He seems completely straightforward, so it would make sense to go there. But a Kia Nova, I think AppMex is the simplest right now. And if you're asking for the silver to be delivered to you, that's where I would go. I like the other one that Lion put up. I'm going to check it, but I like the Silver Doctors, which it might be that one. And but for a clean cut, honest, they are the ones I'm giving you. I think are honest. I like goldsilver.com. There's a couple of other places you can buy physical in different forms. The one that I'm remembering, I think it's called Gold Bit or Bit Gold, but you can actually buy gold in allocated physical little bits, and you have a card where you can buy and spend it. I'll look into that so I can tell you. Endeavor Silver is great, and you did mention it. Endeavor Silver is great. I would love to own Finger, Justin. I would love to own Finger. Right now, I've given my call the way I see it. I don't have the money I had, so I can't be in everything. But make no mistake, if I get a trade that gives me a little bit of profit, I'm going to buy Finger. I'm going to buy Finger. Hey, Donna, I know you're gone. I forget the Netflix of Southeast Asia, but it's in a press release. They bought it, had 100 million, according to Ham, it had 100 million users. It's a year or two ago. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a streaming service. Yeah, fund taking a 10% stake would send the stock up. It's rumors. I don't know how to confirm those rumors. My problem with it, Will, is the stock price is too low. So you could look at it as a positive because I do hear it looks like there's buying. So maybe the stock price has to get up before a fund comes in to buy. That would be a real positive for the price. In a lot of ways, it would be great if the money went to the company. Yeah, we have some different outlooks. We both like Finger. We both like Finger very much. Broker pages are saying earning reports are expected at the end of June. I think that's for the annual report. That's an interesting question. I believe they have to give their fourth quarter 45 days afterward, but if they include it in the annual, well, that's an interesting question. But I think you'll see something in the middle of April. Blue Horseshot likes Anacott steel. All right, let's see. I'll go here. Chase won't let you buy without calling them. Oh, rail, yeah. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just too tired. I'm fading, and so I'm gonna sign out. We'll try to talk tomorrow. Try to get him on because I don't think Ham and I have to talk from the same pulpit. I think we can have different I think at the core, our views are the same about what finger can be. But I guess we have a slightly different view how it gets there. But I'm not. He sees immediate triggers that can cause a squeeze. I think it has to be a slow build, and then you get your trigger if it happens. So I don't know. It's different, I guess, but it's not end of the world different. All right, I'm gonna sign off. I thank you for signing in. I'll try to focus on silver next time because that's more useful. All right, cheers, everybody. Sleep tight. Happy St. Patrick's Day.